Christopher Langston wasn't the type of man you'd expect to walk into a small, family-owned restaurant. He was one of the richest businessmen in the state, known for wearing sharp suits, flying private, and running multi-million-dollar deals like it was nothing. But that night, just before sunset, he pulled up in a sleek black SUV to a quiet little southern place called Maggie's Table. He didn't come for the charm or the comfort food. Honestly, he didn't care much about either. He was just following a tip from one of his personal assistants who had read a blog about the chef's amazing fried catfish. To Christopher, it was just another box to check off his interesting experiences list. But what made this night different was that he wasn't alone. He had his 10-year-old son, Josh, with him. Josh sat quietly in his motorized wheelchair, looking out the window with wide, curious eyes. He didn't get out much. Christopher made sure he had the best care, the best doctors, the best therapists. But deep down, he didn't really know what to do with his son outside of that. Josh was born with cerebral palsy. He couldn't walk, had trouble speaking clearly, and his hands didn't always do what he wanted them to. But his mind was sharp. He loved music, dancing videos, and stories about faraway places. He was kind, sweet, and patient, qualities his father often forgot to notice. When they walked into Maggie's Table, it was warm and a little noisy. Families laughed, plates clinked, and music played softly through a speaker near the kitchen. Christopher didn't even look around. He walked straight to the hostess, gave his name, and asked for a quiet corner. A young waitress, maybe in her late 20s, came over to take their order. Her name tag said Shanice. She had bright eyes, curly hair pulled up into a bun, and a voice full of life. She smiled down at Josh, not in pity, but with genuine kindness. "Hey there, big guy. What's your name?" she asked, kneeling so they were eye level. "JJ Josh," he said carefully. "Nice to meet you, Josh. I'm Shanice. Let me guess, you like mac and cheese, right?" Josh lit up. He nodded quickly. "Thought so. Best one in town. I'll bring you a big plate." Christopher barely looked up from his phone. "Just water. And the catfish," he mumbled. "Coming right up," she said cheerfully. As she walked away, Josh followed her with his eyes, then looked at his dad. "She's nice." "Uh-huh," Christopher replied, not paying attention. He didn't realize that this ordinary dinner, just a quiet meal in a small place, was about to shift something deep in his life. He didn't see it coming. He never would have guessed that a waitress, a song, and a moment of kindness would be the thing to wake him up. But life has a strange way of showing you what really matters when you least expect it. Shanice moved through the restaurant like she was part of the music, not in a loud or flashy way, just easy, smooth, like she had a little rhythm in her step. She didn't just serve tables, she made people feel welcome. She smiled, joked, and remembered who liked extra butter and who didn't want ice in their tea. Everyone at Maggie's Table loved her. But tonight felt a little different. As she walked back toward table 7 with drinks in her hand, she noticed the boy sitting there. Josh. She remembered his name right away. He was watching everything around him like it was new. His eyes kept darting to the speaker near the kitchen where a soft R&B song played. His lips moved a little, like he was trying to hum along. She placed the drinks down carefully. "Your water, sir," she said politely to the father, who was still glued to his phone. Then she turned to Josh. "And one sweet tea for the music man." Josh smiled, small but honest. "You like this song?" she asked him, tilting her head as she swayed, just a little to the beat. He nodded. It's nice." "Me too," she said, and did a quick little spin before heading back toward the kitchen. Josh giggled under his breath. Christopher barely noticed. He was tapping away on an email, replying to someone about a meeting in Singapore. Josh tried to say something, but gave up and just watched the room again. He loved watching people, especially when they danced. Not like in movies, just real people. Moving, smiling, free. Shanice came back with their food a few minutes later. Mac and cheese for Josh, golden fried catfish for Christopher, and a plate of green beans they didn't ask for, but she brought just in case. She put the plates down gently, making sure Josh could reach his. "You ready to dig in, Josh?" she asked. He gave a thumbs up and started slowly scooping macaroni with a spoon. His hand shook a little, but he didn't care. "You're doing great," she said with a wink, then looked at Christopher. "Let me know if you need anything else." Christopher gave a small nod, eyes still on his screen. As she walked away, the music changed. A livelier beat came on, something with a little groove. Shanice, without thinking, snapped her fingers and did a small shoulder roll as she refilled a water glass nearby. A few kids at another table giggled and copied her. Josh watched it all, completely locked in. His head bobbed, just slightly, his hand tapping his leg. Something about it made him feel happy and included, not just watching, but almost part of it. And for the first time in a long while, he forgot about the wheelchair. He forgot about being different. He just wanted to move with the music. And Shanice, without even realizing it, was the one pulling him into that moment. The meal went on quietly, but something was changing at table 7. Josh was smiling more than usual, and Christopher, though still distant, kept glancing up from his phone. Shanice noticed Josh's eyes following every movement, every beat of the music playing softly through the restaurant. She kept finding little ways to include him without making a big deal. When she passed by, she'd tap his shoulder lightly or wink. When she brought the check, she asked if he wanted to pick the next song on the jukebox near the corner. Christopher didn't say anything. He just watched, confused by how interested his son seemed in all these small things. He had never seen Josh so alive in public before. After a few minutes, Shanice took a break near the kitchen, watching Josh carefully from distance. He was humming a tune quietly and tapping the armrest of his wheelchair in time with the music. For once, he didn't look like a boy fighting his own body. He looked like a kid having fun. Christopher noticed too, and something inside him tightened. He'd spent so many years focusing on doctors, therapy sessions, and medical appointments that he forgot the simple joys. He had always thought protecting Josh meant keeping him safe from disappointment, from pain, from the world's harsh eyes. But now, watching his son smile, something felt wrong about all that protection. Shanice came back with a fresh glass of water and smiled at Josh. "Hey, want to try something?" she asked quietly. Josh blinked up at her. What? Just follow my lead for a second. No pressure." He nodded slowly, curious. Shanice stood up and motioned for him to turn his chair toward the middle of the restaurant where the music was louder. She took a few steps back, then gently started swaying to the beat. "Try to move with me," she said softly. "Even if it's just a little." Josh hesitated, then pushed the joystick on his wheelchair slowly. The chair turned just a little bit, and he smiled. Shanice smiled back and kept moving, matching his pace. The other diners started to notice. Some smiled. Others stopped what they were doing to watch quietly. Christopher put down his phone and stood there too, frozen. He felt a mix of pride and something else, something like shame. He had been so caught up in the business of life that he almost missed this moment. Josh, usually so quiet, laughed out loud as he spun the chair again. He was leading now. Shanice didn't stop. She danced around him, careful not to get in his way, but making sure he felt like the star. The music faded and the lights shifted back to normal, but something in the restaurant had changed. Christopher looked at his son and saw him differently. Not as a kid who needed protection or fixing, but as a boy who could shine if someone just let him. And for the first time, Christopher wondered if he had been the one holding Josh back all along. Shanice didn't expect to get up from her table to dance that night. It just happened. The music changed. A slow jazz song filled the room, soft and warm. She glanced over at Josh and saw him looking at the speakers, then at her, as if asking for something without words. Without thinking much, she smiled and walked over. "Hey, Josh," she said softly. "Do you want to dance with me?" Josh's eyes grew wide. He hesitated, then slowly nodded. Christopher watched, surprised. His son, who rarely moved outside his wheelchair, was about to dance. Shanice took Josh's hand gently, careful not to startle him. She helped him turn his wheelchair a little, showing him how to move to the beat. She stepped around him, matching her moves to his small turns and taps. The other diners watched quietly, some whispering, but none interrupting. Josh's face lit up with a big smile. He laughed, a clear, happy laugh that filled the room. For the first time, he was the center of attention, not because of his wheelchair, but because of his joy. Christopher felt something shift inside him. All the walls he had built up over years started to crumble. He realized he had been so focused on protecting Josh that he never let him shine. Now, watching his son lead, he understood what it meant to be free. Shanice danced with easy grace, never rushing. She encouraged Josh with soft words. "You're doing great, keep going, just like that." She made sure he felt proud and strong. For Josh, the world felt different. He wasn't just a boy with a disability. He was a dancer, a leader, someone who could move to his own rhythm. Christopher wiped a tear from his eye, unnoticed by anyone. He didn't know the last time he had felt so connected to his son, not just as a father, but as a human being sharing a simple, beautiful moment. The music played on, slow and sweet, and for a few minutes, the whole restaurant seemed to hold its breath. Nobody spoke. They just watched a small boy dance with a waitress, and it felt like magic. When the song ended, Shanice gave Josh a high five. "You rocked it." Josh grinned from ear to ear. "Thank you." Christopher finally spoke quietly. "Thank you." Shanice looked at him and nodded. She didn't need to say more. The moment had said everything. Later, as they finished their meal, Christopher kept stealing glances at Josh. The boy was smiling, relaxed, and happy. Something inside Christopher had changed, and he knew this night was only the beginning. He didn't know it yet, but the simple act of letting his son lead a dance step was about to change everything. Christopher didn't expect to feel so many things all at once. As he watched Josh and Shanice dancing, his world seemed to slow down. It was like everything else. The noise of the restaurant, the busy city outside, the constant demands of his business faded away. All that mattered was his son, smiling and moving with confidence. He stood up from the table, still unsure if he should join or just watch. But instead of stepping in, he just stayed where he was quietly observing. Josh was in control, leading with his hands on the wheelchair joystick, moving carefully but with clear joy. Shanice followed his pace, encouraging him with soft words and light steps. Around them, people stopped what they were doing. Forks paused halfway to mouths. Conversations dropped to whispers. Phones lowered. Strangers smiled. Some even wiped tears from their eyes. Nobody felt like interrupting this moment. It was too pure, too real. Christopher's heart was pounding. He felt pride, but also guilt. Guilt for all the times he had held Josh back, kept him safe but small. Guilt for focusing so much on therapy and doctors, and forgetting how to let his son just be a kid. He realized he had been living in a bubble, protecting Josh from the world's harshness. But in doing so, he'd missed the beauty of letting him shine. Josh laughed again, the sound bright and clear. It was the kind of laugh that could fill a room with light. And for the first time, Christopher saw Josh not as someone who needed help, but as someone who could inspire. Shanice moved closer and whispered, "He's amazing." Christopher nodded, barely able to speak. He knew she was right. The music slowed, the song ending with a soft piano note. Josh stopped spinning, breathing a little heavier but smiling wider than ever. Shanice gave him a gentle hug and whispered, "You did great." The restaurant slowly returned to normal. People resumed their meals and conversations, but something in the air had shifted. Christopher took Josh's hand. "Thank you," he said, voice thick with emotion. "For everything." Shanice smiled, a little shy now. He just needed someone to let him lead. Christopher looked at his son, his brave, wonderful son, and realized his life would never be the same. This small moment, a dance in a quiet restaurant, had opened his eyes. From now on, he would do things differently. He would listen more, hold back less, and let Josh be exactly who he was meant to be. The world had paused just long enough for Christopher to see what truly mattered, and he wasn't going to let it slip away again. "We'll figure it out," he said finally. "I want you to be happy, son." Josh's face lit up. "Really? Really?" Christopher watched his son carefully. He remembered the shy boy who usually kept to himself, afraid to try new things. But tonight, Josh had led a dance. He'd laughed and felt free. And it wasn't because of any medicine or therapy. It was because someone saw him, truly saw him. Shanice helped. Josh added, his voice small but full of meaning. "She did," Christopher agreed. "And maybe we should thank her." "Yes," Josh smiled wide. The rest of the drive was quiet again, but it felt different. There was a warmth in the car, a feeling of hope. Christopher realized he wanted to be part of Josh's world, not just the businessman who paid the bills and hired the best doctors. As the SUV pulled into their driveway, Christopher turned to his son. "How about we find more ways to dance?" Josh nodded eagerly. "Please." Christopher laughed softly. "Okay, son, we'll dance." That night, Christopher lay awake thinking about the restaurant, the music, and Shanice's kindness. He realized that life wasn't just about control and plans. Sometimes it was about letting go and following a different rhythm, a rhythm led by his son. He didn't know what the future held, but for the first time, he felt ready to step into it with an open heart. And Josh, well, he dreamed of dancing again, feeling the music move through him like never before. A few days after their night at the restaurant, Christopher couldn't stop thinking about Shanice. Her kindness, the way she connected with Josh, and how she made that moment so special. He wanted to thank her properly, and maybe do more. He called Maggie's table early one morning and asked to speak with the manager. When he explained who he was and why he was calling, the manager seemed surprised but happy to help. Shanice was working her morning shift when a manager pulled her aside. "There's a gentleman here who wants to meet you," she said with a smile. Shanice blinked, curious but a little nervous. She followed the manager to a quiet corner of the restaurant where Christopher was waiting, dressed more casually than the last time they met. "Shanice," he said, offering his hand. "Thank you for everything you did for my son. That night, it meant more than you know." Shanice shook his hand and smiled shyly. "I'm just glad Josh had fun." Christopher looked down at Josh, who was sitting quietly in his wheelchair nearby, watching the two adults talk. "I want to do something to support your work here," he said. "Maybe a scholarship for kids like Josh or funding for programs that help families." Shanice's eyes widened. "That would be amazing." They talked for a while about ideas. Christopher was serious about making a difference. He realized that money could open doors for kids who didn't always get a chance. After the meeting, Christopher walked outside with Josh. The boy looked up at his dad, eyes shining. "Dad, you think I can dance again? Maybe in a real class?" Christopher smiled, feeling a new kind of hope. "Yes, son. We'll find a way." The next weeks were busy but full of new energy. Christopher found a local dance program for kids with disabilities and signed Josh up. He also kept in touch with Shanice, who became more than just a waitress. She became a friend. Shanice sent Josh videos of dance moves and cheered him on every time they met. Josh loved it, and so did Christopher. Through it all, Christopher learned something important. Sometimes the smallest moments, like a dance step in a quiet restaurant, can change lives in big ways. And sometimes, all it takes is someone willing to see a child's light and let it shine. Months later, the day finally came for Josh's first dance class. Christopher felt nervous and excited at the same time. He wasn't sure how it would go, but he knew one thing. Tonight's dance at the restaurant had changed everything. Shanice came along, smiling warmly as she helped Josh get ready. "You ready to shine?" she asked. Josh nodded, his eyes bright with hope. When the music started in the small studio, Josh hesitated at first. His hands didn't always do what he wanted. His wheelchair didn't move like other kids' feet. But Shanice was there, encouraging him every step, every turn. Slowly, Josh began to move. Not perfectly, but with joy. His laughter filled the room as he spun, tapped, and followed the rhythm. Christopher watched from the side, tears in his eyes. He realized that letting go was the best thing he could do for his son. Not controlling, but trusting. After class, Josh ran to his dad and hugged him tightly. "Thank you, Dad," he said simply. Christopher smiled and hugged him back. "Thank you for teaching me how to dance through life." Shanice joined them, beaming. "You both did amazing today." The small dance studio wasn't just a place to learn steps. It was where Josh found confidence, friendship, and freedom. And Christopher found a new way to be a father. That night, they all went back to Maggie's table for dinner. The restaurant felt different now, full of hope and new beginnings. Christopher raised his glass to dancing through life together. Josh and Shanice smiled. The future was wide open, and for the first time, they all felt ready to step into it, one dance at a time.